got Coach Ryan Badrtalei from UC Irvine. They are consistently in the top 5 each year in rebounding margin and defensive field goal percentage. I mean, every single year. It's the pillars of their program. They've been very, very successful as a result. Hey, Ryan, we got you about 10 minutes. You ready to roll?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Richie. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. And obviously, thank you for putting something like this together. I mean, it's been really helpful to be able to hear from everybody's thoughts and hopefully, the things that maybe I can, impart can, spark some really good conversation in your breakout groups. Like Richie said, I mean, I think the first thing when we're talking about offensive rebounding is for us at least, is how your team is built and what your philosophy is. And for us, offensive rebounding and rebounding in general is just such a staple of what we do. And that goes hand in hand in how we recruit, the things we value, especially from our big guys. I think if you prioritize that in recruiting and you emphasize those things every day in practice, I think it gives you an opportunity to put yourself in position to accomplish those things. And so, and that being said, just like what Richie said earlier, what your philosophy is in offensive rebounding, whatever you decide to do, how that translates to transition defense. I think those things go obviously hand in hand. And those are things that we talk about all the time. So the things that we do, when we do our offensive rebounding drill, I mean, we will break it down and do just offensive rebounding drills, but we'll also do offensive rebounding drills to transition drills. And I do think that has helped us a lot as far as making sure that we understand that connection. Again, I mean, for us, we play big. We play big with our 4s and our 5s. Where we put them on the court on offense puts us in position to be in position to rebound. And so that being said, that gives us an advantage, at least from what we think, every time we're playing, because if you're creating help through pick and roll, if you're creating help in any sort of screening action, it gives your guys an opportunity to be down towards the blocks at the rim in position to rebound. And so rather than just talk to you guys about it, I wanted to show you a little bit of film of our offense and where we put our big guys specifically that gives us an advantageous opportunity to rebound. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and then take you guys through a few clips, and hopefully this doesn't glitch and you guys can see it just fine. But this is our first clip. It's a transition clip. To start with, it'll show you a little bit of where we put our guys. In transition, we're always going to have a first post at the rim. He's going to try to establish down there, give us an opportunity to be down towards the rim. One of our options in secondary is a drag ball screen, which I know a lot of people do. But the coordination of our big guys with one another at the rim right here, and then setting this drag ball screen puts us in position again at the rim. And obviously, if your guard has an opportunity to turn the corner here, we're going to duck in the second side post. And again, on this drive right here, you're able to see rebound position. And we'll talk a little bit about what we tell our guards. But our guards have the opportunity, especially if our point guard takes it to the rim, our 2 guard or 3 guard is always going to get back. That starts our transition defense. And then our opposite guard, we always talk about getting through the elbows and back. If guards are crashing from the corners and cutting to the rim, I think a lot of times it puts them behind the play in transition, especially considering the fact that our big guys are always going to be down. So one of the things we talk about is getting through the elbows and back. And if our point guard takes it to the rim, our opposite guard's getting back. So this will show you just rebound positioning through our transition. So that's the first clip I wanted to show you. Similar situation right here, another middle ball screen. It's a late clock type deal. We're ducking our big guys down and we're just throwing this duck in. But whenever the ball goes to the post, our opposite big is always going to work low. And so he catches it right there, and then our opposite big is going to be low. And that puts us in offensive rebounding position. Again, with our guards flowing back, number 11 should be through the elbow and back. But again, that gives us really good opportunity to offensive rebound in those situations. One of the key, again, here's another middle ball screen. One of the keys that we talk about, I think everybody does pick and roll series. If you play any pick and roll basketball, you go through a series, point guard brings it off and shoots it. Point guard finds different options, finds your roller, things like that. The one thing I think we've done a good job of and has been a part of our sequence is our big guys rolling to rebound. And I think that's something that we've really emphasized. And so you see number 5 right here on his roll. As soon as he sees, he's going to be available for this full pass right here. And obviously we have a second side duck in. But as soon as he sees his teammate go up to shoot, he's always going to get his feet back and his hands up. And that's one thing we talk about all the time in rebounding is put your eyes on the ball, get your feet back, get your hands up, and go locate the ball. And getting your feet back right here, see how he stops right here and holds this space. This gives him an opportunity to go and pursue. Because if he overrolls this, that's going to be a really tough position to get that rebound. And so, getting his feet back, getting his hands up, holding this space right here gives him a great opportunity to go and get that offensive rebound. So that puts him in a good position right here. The other thing we talk about, especially with our big guys, is technique. A few things that we talk about, I'll go through. The one thing that we talk about with our big guys is when you're working low, a lot of people don't think you're in an advantageous spot working low. We call this spot down here the dunker spot. So if we're loosening from our defender right here, this dunker spot, if there's help in this position, we talk about wedge outs. So this may be considered an offensive foul. Is a question whether or not to put this on, but a lot of teams flop against us because of our size. But when he's in the dunker spot right here, we work on our wedge outs, and something we work on all the time. And so as his shot goes up, he's below the backboard, and he's going to push off his outside leg, which is his left leg. He's not going to push with his off arm, and he's just going to work him up and create this position for an offensive rebound right here. And that's a wedge out play right there. And this is a drill that we work on pretty regularly, where we put a coach down here. I don't know if you can see my cursor down here, a manager with a pad, just give the guy a ball and really work on that push and that dribble. And so that technique of pushing off your outside foot, creating that space, is something that we work on all the time. And that gives us an advantage on the boards. And that's some part of the technique that we work on. Again, here's, you see our post. I mean, the first part of this play was as the ball went into the post, we dive and we get low, and this puts you in position to rebound at the rim. And our big guys always work off of each other. And so as he takes it middle, you see number 5 working low. And again, another wedge out right here on the shot. He creates that space, and that gives you an opportunity for an offensive rebound. The other thing we work on is when you are distance from the basket, is using your handwork and loosening from the defender. And so you'll see a quick clip of this. Number 5 right here on this weak side, setting a flare as number 4 comes over and tries to block him off. He loosens and uses his handwork to get by him. And again, this is something that we work on pretty consistently with our big guys. And then moving on again, talking about our elbow rebounds and our coverage. Obviously, we have board coverage here. Our opposite big is diving. You have a shot from the corner. 14 is going to be responsible for getting back. And then you'll see number 15 right here getting through the elbow. So that's part of what we do. But another technique that we work on with our big guys is controlled tips. And so number 55, he's been on our program for 4 years. We've done control tips along with our mic and drills, just tipping off the backboard and even tipping the ball to yourself. That really gives guys an opportunity to understand how to control the ball. So there's drills that we do with that. So the controlled tips are things that we work on with our big guys all the time, especially if you got a guy on your back. And then talking about our guards, the next clip from here, this is a late clock play, but you see our guard, you see number 5 right here getting through the elbow. 24's responsibility is to get back. And these long rebounds are ones that we get, especially because we're big inside. There's going to be opportunities for tip balls. Getting through the elbows is part of, again, our transition defense that we talk about. And there again is another elbow rebound. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys on the transition, on the offensive rebounding component of it. Transition defense real quickly. I know we'll talk about it a lot. A few things that we talk about all the time. There's nothing more important than building your transition defense than getting back on defense. We have to sprint. That's the first component of our transition defense. You have to sprint back. That's an absolute. Number 2, you have to get back and you have to get in a stance. Number 3, you must communicate. And the 4th thing that we talk about all the time is playing personnel tendencies. Especially if you're at a disadvantage, you have to know scouting report, know who's a passer, who's going to look to score, some guy's range, what his handedness is. If you can put a guy on his weak end in transition, there's so much less likely to be able to make a play. The 3 components that we talk about in transition defense is, and this is something that we ask our guys to regurgitate to us over and over again, is you have to get back, you have to locate ball, and you have to locate threats. All right, so it's back, ball, threats for us. And so we're always getting back. We got to protect the rim. Usually it's going to be our point guard, and as the big guy comes back, he's going to push our point guard out to the perimeter to make sure that we take away the ball, and then we have to locate threats. And as much as once we get the ball sided, we're going to load to the ball to build our defense from there. And those are the components of our transition defense that we emphasize all the time. Back ball threats with those 4 absolutes. I think those are, components to our transition defense that go really hand in hand with what we do on the offensive glass. So yeah, that's what I had to talk to you guys about. Hopefully that was at least helpful. I know it was quick, but hopefully it percolates some of the conversation in your groups.
I noticed that he kept his 2 wings spread out about foul line high and his point guard back. Was that by design, or he just sends 2 guys to the boards? Just an observation.
Yeah, no, I think it correlates to how we play offense, and what we talk about all the time in our offense is our court spacing. We really emphasized corner spacing, and so because of that, we really, like you saw in film, we saw our wing spacing all the way to the corners, and for that reason, like one of the things we talked about in our breakout sessions was how important it was to make sure our guys don't get caught in no man's land. Because if you have corner spacing, you could be really, really vulnerable in transition if you just stand and watch, somebody shoot, or you watch a post-up player. So emphasizing for them, obviously, they have to get back from those positions. They can't just stand and watch. They can't be, they can't crash the glass below the backboard. So it is by design. We do crash the glass with our 2 big guys, obviously. And then we get our wings through the elbows. That's part of what we talk about is for those long rebounds, tip balls, but that gets them on their way back in transition. So we always get our point guard back unless he's the guy shooting from the corner or driving the ball to the rim. And then the other guys kind of adapt to that. And so for that reason, we, when we do drill work, especially if we do like an offensive possession to defensive transition, we put guys in different spots on the court so they can be reactive. So if the point guard takes it to the rim or a point guard shoots it from the corner, there's a responsibility for somebody else to take the point guard spot. So it goes hand in hand with our offensive spacing.
So Coach, I just have one more quick question. So do you have a pickup point for the other team's primary ball handler? Do you have a pickup point that you generally tell your guard to do?
Yeah, generally speaking, our one rule more than anything is you can't give up the rim. And so our point guard's always going to be back to the rim first. And so the quicker we can get our big guys back to the rim and allow our guards to come out, the better. And so that's, sprinting back on defense is the first point that we always make, making sure we protect the rim. And then point of pickup, I think, depends on personnel as much as anything. We don't really jam the ball handler. We had a kid that transferred from Stanford that just had a knack to do it, so we allowed him to do it. But some kids have no feel for it, and so if a kid can create an advantage by doing that and not give up the rim and create a disadvantage for us, then that's the most important thing. But for us, because of the way we build our defense, we want teams to play in the half court against us. So creating some sort of advantage by really jamming the ball doesn't make a lot of sense for us.
Coach, real quick, you mentioned you had 4 things for transition D. I know one of them was sprint, but I didn't catch the other 3 that you listed out.
Yeah, so we always talk about we always talk about obviously getting back ball and threats. That's not exactly what you're asking for, but that, getting the guys to regurgitate that over and over again and understand that that's, what their responsibility is. So back ball and threats, that's what we talk about all the time, just so they know. But the 4 things we talk about is the absolutes are you have to sprint back in defense. Obviously, you have to sprint, and we highlight that in film. We just put guys on blast in film sessions. Hey, and coach just uses his laser pointer and says, "Hey, is this as hard as you can go in front of the whole team?" And they got to answer, and inevitably, the answer is no. You have to get back and get in the stance with active hands. You have to. That's an absolute. You got to sit in the stance. Your hands got to be up. Number 3, you have to communicate. Especially in transition, we emphasize all the time. We talk about this in our breakout group that in transition, you don't have a man. With our young guys, inevitably they come from high school and you say, "Hey, who was your man in transition?" And they'll point to somebody, and then you'll immediately say, "No, that you don't have a man in transition. You're buying time for your teammates." And so that communication component is so important. You have to communicate, whether it's, obviously verbally, non-verbally with your hands, things like that. And then the last thing for us, just in scouting is you have to play personnel tendencies. We ask our guys in scouting to understand personnel tendencies. What does a guy want to do? What is his handedness? What is his strengths? So those are the 4 things that we, that translate over to transition for us that are our absolutes.
Can you, Coach, can you elaborate and talk a little more in terms of the offensive rebounding, kind of your triangle concept of guys going to the elbow or to the nail area, who goes where, when, and just your philosophy on that?
Well, I mean, the most important thing is that we get back. I think, like I said, I mean, for us, getting back in transition defense and making plays in the half court is the most important thing. And so the concept of getting through the elbows with our special corner or wing spacing on the floor allows us to be in position for long rebounds, tip balls, things of that nature, but then also transition back to the elbow because, like I said, if you have corner or wing spacing and you attack to the block where your big guys are, one, getting in the way of your guys, and 2, if you get down towards the rim, it makes it really hard to 2 directions. 1, down towards the rim, the block below the backboard, and back. And so we say through the elbow so you can be in position for tip balls, long rebounds, which are things that we work on with our big guys, and also sets up what we call 3-point rebounds. So our big guys are always looking at, inevitably there's going to be a bunch of guys in the paint. And so when big guys get rebounds, they know that they're obviously looking for their quick finishes around the rim, and those are things we work on all the time. But if you're getting through the elbow, it's easy to re-space on the perimeter for 3-point rebounds. And, so I hope that answers your question, but, depending on your spacing, we always get our point guard or the top guy back, and then we get our other 2 through the elbows. That puts them in position for long rebounds or for 3-point rebounds.
Okay, so you're saying that your wings are going through the elbows and going back to the top of the 3-point line?
Yeah, so if we get an offensive rebound, they're going to re-space based on where the rebound is. If they gets a defensive rebound, they go through the elbows and back. You're just going through the elbows,
okay,
taking a look if there's a long rebound or a tip, and that just gives you momentum to get back on defense. And your defense is being built really with your point guard, who's going to get the rim first, and then everybody has to work off of your point guard who takes care of the rim first, and everyone kind of is able to react based on where the ball is and where their transition is going.
Okay,
I got one. How early are you guys communicating to recruits, like emphasizing? Well, for me, it was very early on that if you don't play defense and you don't rebound, you're not going to play, you're not going to touch the court. How early in the recruiting process are you telling guys that, or are you at all?
Yeah, good question. I mean, for us, I mean, I think especially on the West Coast, we have a reputation for being a defensive-minded team. But just in recruiting in general, for me personally, I talk about that being one of the biggest obstacles for young players having the chance to play early in their career in general, especially if they're playing in a winning program. A lot of kids, they're maybe ready offensively, but they can't defend. And so, talking about that early in recruiting anyways, just to create a defensive identity for themselves, no matter what position they are. What do they do defensively? What's their defensive game? Every kid wants to talk about what their offensive game is, what their strength is. And I challenge recruits all the time to think about what their defensive identity, what their defensive game is, because I think that's as important as anything, especially if the college coaches or any, 4-year coach, junior college coach or whatever is evaluating a kid. What do you bring defensively? Because again, I think that's one of the biggest obstacles for young players to get on the court early in their careers, their inability to defend or lack of, thought process of it being important. And the reality is so many of the best kids are relied so heavily upon offensively that they take breaks off. And so it's habits more than anything. So getting them to think about playing every possession defensively and how they're getting evaluated that way, I think is really important.
Coach Yves Michel, North Carolina Rough Riders. You spoke briefly about the control tips and the drills that you did with the control tips. I was not fast enough to write it down, so if you would be so kind to just touch base on that one more time for the control tips for me, please.
Yeah, so we've added that to like our micing series with our big guys, which we use in a lot of our just warm-up type stuff. And there's certain points of emphasis that we make in our mic and drills that I think are important, that include, just our handwork, really lifting to the rim, trying to finish above the rim. But we've added, just a bunch of tips to it. And so, we'll get on the right side of the glass and just do right-handed tips up against the glass. And the points of emphasis is trying to touch the ball at its highest point. So timing your jumps, controlling the tips, trying to tip the ball above the backboard as much as you can. So we do that right hand. We'll do that with alternating hands. We'll obviously do that with the left hand as well. So the points of emphasis, again, being, trying to tip the ball at its highest point, trying to control the tip, trying to keep the ball off of your palm. And then the other thing we do is tipping the ball to yourself. So we'll just have the guys just tip the ball in the air, with one hand, and then tip it and move with active feet. We'll do that both right hand and left hand, and then right and left hand separately. And it's unbelievable how much guys get confident in tipping just by doing those drills over and over again. And so you were able to see that improvement, and especially because we play big and guys are in those wedge out spots, being able to tip the ball themselves and then going and getting the ball with two hands from those tips is really important. So we don't love guys just tipping the ball. We don't like guys tipping the ball into the rim unless it's above the rim, below the rim, like we call them slaps, not tips. So don't slap at it. If it's below the rim, go get it with two hands. If it's above the rim, then you can use your tips.
Coach, you call that the McHale drill, the tipping drill, Kevin McHale drill?
We haven't called it the McHale. It's just an extension of our Micans. We just call it our tip series.
Okay.